To maintain the batteries and inspect the fuses on your eFTR Junior, follow these steps. Before beginning, ensure the vehicle is parked on a flat surface with the power switched to off. Then, continue by removing the 5 bolts holding the battery cover in place. Once the cover is loose, carefully maneuver the cover around the trim panels to expose the connectors behind it. Take care to avoid misplacing the nuts retained in the cover. Then, disconnect the battery harness connectors extending from the battery cover to the main harness and set the cover aside. Next, loosen and remove the 2 top battery bracket bolts. Then, loosen and remove the bottom 2 bracket bolts. Continue by lifting the batteries up and out of the tray, taking care to maneuver them around the main harness and control module. If reinstalling the batteries, ensure they are free of any debris to prevent damage. Once your inspection is complete, open the fuse box attached to each battery. Inspect the fuses for damage or signs of burning out and replace if necessary. Once complete, reassemble the battery packs by placing the foam pad and bottom bracket over the 2 batteries. Then place the top battery over the 2 lowers and install the top bracket. Then reinstall the batteries into the tray and carefully maneuver the module and foam pad onto the top battery. Next, reinstall the bottom bracket fasteners and the top bracket fasteners. Then, torque the fasteners until fully seated. Once the batteries are in place, reconnect all battery connectors to the cover harness. Then, reinstall the battery cover by pivoting it around the trim panels and ensuring the nuts retained in the cover are not misplaced. Before securing, ensure the wires are routed through the cutout on the top of the cover. Then, secure the cover in place with the 5 bolts, and torque the fasteners until fully seated. Finally, turn the power on and verify the battery indicator operates properly. To inspect and replace the drive chain and rear brakes on your eFTR Junior, follow these steps. Begin by safely elevating the vehicle until the rear wheel is off the ground. Continue by loosening the screws on the chain guard and pivoting the guard around the chain to remove. Then inspect the entire length of the chain for any wear or damage and replace as needed. Next, counterhold and loosen the axle nuts, but do not remove them. Then, push the chain tensioner down to add slack to the chain. Remove the chain from the motor sprocket first, and then the rear sprocket. Once the chain is free from the wheel, push the wheel downward and away from the vehicle to remove. Next, remove the nut securing the chain tensioner and slide it off the bolt to remove the bearings and the chain. Then, clean any dirt or grit from the chain using a clean cloth. Avoid using solvents or degreasers to prevent premature wear. Next, move to the brake pads and remove the 2 bolts holding the brake pads in place. Then, pull the pads and spring out of the caliper. Next, inspect the brake pads for any wear or damage and replace as needed. Then, install the pads and spring into the caliper. compress the spring, and align the caliper with the mounting holes. Then, install the 2 mounting fasteners and torque until fully seated. Continue reassembly by placing the chain in the tensioner bracket. Then, place the 2 tensioner bearings inside the chain loop and slide the assembly onto the mounting stud. Secure the tensioner with the previously removed nut, ensuring the top cover of the tensioner is rotated to its end stop, and torque until fully seated. Then, reinstall the wheel assembly by installing the chain around the rear sprocket and aligning the axle with the frame. Then, lift the assembly up into place, ensuring the brake disc is installed in the caliper. Also, ensure the washers are mounted on the outside of the frame and the spacers on the inside. Next, push the chain tensioner down and maneuver the chain onto the motor sprocket. Once partially installed, the rear wheel can be turned backwards to aid in chain installation. Before continuing, lubricate the chain with an approved chain lubricant. Once the chain is in place, tighten the rear axle nuts until fully seated. Then, reinstall the chain guard and secure with the 2 guard fasteners. Torque the fasteners until fully seated. To adjust the brake cable play for both the front or rear brakes, thread the brake lever adjuster in or out a 1/4 of a turn to a 1/2 turn until the desired brake adjustment is attained. If proper adjustment is not possible with this, loosen the rear anchor bolt and pull the brake wire to help achieve a proper adjustment. Ensure the distance between the brake wire end of the cable and the anchor bolt is set to specification. Finally, if the brake rotor is dragging on the pads, twist the adjuster on the caliper in either direction to center the rotor on the pads. To remove the front wheel and inspect the brakes on your eFTR Junior, follow these steps. Begin by safely elevating the front wheel. Then, loosen and remove the nut on the front axle. Next, slide the front axle bolt out of the wheel while also removing the washers and spacers. Then, remove the wheel. Next, move to the brake pads and remove the 2 bolts holding the brake pads in place. Then, pull the pads and spring out of the caliper. Next, inspect the brake pads for any wear or damage and replace as needed. Then, install the pads and spring into the caliper. Compress the spring and align the caliper with the mounting holes. Then, install the 2 mounting fasteners and torque until fully seated. Continue by positioning the front wheel into the front fork and sliding the disc brake into the caliper. Next, install a washer onto the axle bolt and slide through the fork. Then, place the spacer on each side of the wheel, ensuring the wide end is facing the forks, and continue passing the bolt through the wheel hub and other fork. Secure the axle bolt with a washer and lock nut and torque until fully seated. This video will aid in troubleshooting various scenarios on your eFTR Junior. If the vehicle will not turn on after reassembly, begin by charging the batteries for a full 12 hours. Also, verify there are not any loose connections. If the vehicle has been operating properly and has suddenly stopped, inspect and replace any burned out fuses. Verify there are not any loose connections. And if these are not able to help, your motor or electrical switch may be damaged and will need to be diagnosed and repaired by your authorized service center. With the aid of an assistant, turn the power on with no weight on the vehicle and lift up the back end until the wheel is off the ground. Apply the throttle to engage the motor. If the motor engages, replace the battery. If the motor does not engage but makes a clicking sound, replace the battery. If the motor does not engage but doesn't make a clicking sound, replace the control module. The charger may not be operating properly. Inspect the lights to verify proper operation. If it's plugged into the wall, the light should be green. If it's plugged into the wall and the vehicle, the light should be red when charging. If it's plugged into the wall and the vehicle, the light should be green once the charging is complete. If there are no lights or if the lights are blinking, the charger will need to be replaced. If the vehicle runtime is short or if the vehicle runs slow, ensure the rider weight does not exceed the weight limit published on the warning label. Charge the batteries for a full 12 hours. If this does not help, they may need replacement. Ensure the tires are properly inflated. And make sure the brakes are adjusted properly and not dragging. If the vehicle runs intermittently, verify there are not any loose connections. If this does not help, your motor or electrical switch may be damaged and will need to be diagnosed and repaired by your authorized service center. If the vehicle does not stop when applying the brakes, ensure that the brakes are properly adjusted. If the vehicle makes loud noises or grinding sounds, the chain may be dry and require lubrication. For more information, see your authorized Indian Motorcycle dealer or visit indianmotorcycle.com.